Greetings. Thank you for inviting me to speak at the User-Centric AI Forum. I'm grateful to be with you remotely. I apologize I can't be with you in person. Congratulations to all of you who are there. And again, thank you for inviting me. I want to thank in particular President Park and all of my friends at Harex UBPay who've been great partners to me and our companies over the years. I also want to thank 연합인포맥스 for the invitation to speak before you today. I will be brief, but what I want to speak about is the revolution in the use of federated learning in the prevention of financial crime and fraud in the United States and globally. This is a mission that I've been committed to for many years with the establishment of Consilient, our fintech, which is the first ever company in the world to apply and deploy federated learning, federated artificial intelligence for the prevention of financial crime. So I'm proud to be able to speak to you today about this very important and revolutionary technology and the trends and applications that are underway in the marketplace. I do have to credit my friend President Park, who talks about federated learning, and he and his colleagues describe this as AI sharing. And at the end of the day, this is about the sharing of algorithms and not the sharing, extraction, or congregation of data. And in that very simple idea, there are revolutionary applications. And in particular, in the anti-money laundering, countering the financing of terrorism world, the use of this technology has revolutionary implications. In the first instance, the current system is highly inefficient. It's understood to be inefficient because each institution around the world has to apply systems and controls to monitor suspicious activity, to screen nefarious activity, and to ensure that illicit finance is not entering the financial system. But we know that 98% of transactions that are blocked are false positives. We know that investigators spend time chasing rabbits down rabbit holes that have no real meaning. And we know that much of the time is spent duplicating effort, institution by institution. We also know that this system is highly ineffective. It is not doing the job of preventing systemic risk across the global financial system. We know that only a small percentage of money laundering every year is stopped or even detected. We know that the system is reactive and is very much rules-based in its application, and in particular, the monitoring of transaction monitoring. And so the system itself is inefficient and ineffective and is understood to be not fit for purpose. We also understand that the environment is concerned around data privacy. The advent of the GDPR regime, privacy regime in Europe, and related regimes in North America and elsewhere have signaled a new sensitivity, an acute sensitivity to sharing customer data, control of one's data, and the movement of data between institutions and its use. We also know that there's greater concern around data security, cybersecurity, and more issues of sovereignty and data localization, with over 80 jurisdictions over the last couple of years passing legislation to require localization or fence ringing of data within their country as a matter of security. And finally, we know that the financial system itself is evolving. We know that there is greater disintermediation among payments, cross-border payments. We know that the introduction of decentralized finance and digital currencies is creating challenges for understanding originator and beneficiary of transactions. And we know that there are greater and greater hops between payments, whether within payment ecosystems or between financial institutions, making it harder and harder to understand where risk sits and where risk needs to be discovered. And so it's in that environment that this technology is being spawned, and certainly from Consilient's standpoint is being deployed to solve in an elegant way those fundamental policy issues. And there's more and more recognition not only of the technology, but of its potential applications. We have begun to apply this within major banks as a tool of testing and assurance to discover risk. Models that have traveled are smarter than models that are tested or trained on single data sets or within just one institution. And so we've seen an uplift of efficiency and effectiveness where it's been deployed. We know this is a tool of collaboration that allows more than one institution to share insights, to share the learnings from the models without having to share the data. And so we're seeing that. We know that there are applications within payment channels, for example, between correspondent banks and respondent banks, or between a payment service provider and a retailer, that can be illuminated with respect to potential risk. We also know that there are ways for regulators, financial intelligence units, even central banks to apply this technology as a tool to audit, as a tool to discover risk, or even to interrogate where risk has not been seen before within regulated sectors. So we're seeing these use cases emerge. We are taking advantage of them, and we are certainly trying to deploy Consilient where we can in those environments. What's fascinating about this technology is that once individuals understand what the technology is about, it's about the movement of algorithms for greater learning and training among varied data sets to discover and illuminate risk. You then begin to see multiple use cases that allow you to imagine not just discovery of risk, but the illumination of opportunity. And in so doing, I think this technology begins to destroy some old orthodoxies and open the imagination for possibilities. Those orthodoxies are still with us in many ways. The orthodoxy that in order to have the best trained machine learning models, you have to have all of your data in one place. The orthodoxy of data aggregation or data lakes is challenged by this technology. You no longer have to aggregate data in order to take advantage of the data. In addition, the old rules-based models that have been used traditionally for decades to monitor for risk, to monitor transactions, payment systems, risk among customer types, is now giving way to artificial intelligence and the ability to look at behavioral analysis as a way of discovering risk and opportunity. We also know that this does damage to the very notion of what information sharing means and is required in order to collaborate and discover risk. And so instead of sharing data, moving data, having to extract data, the movement of algorithms without having to move data allows for the sharing of insights. So the very notion of sharing information is converted to this notion of sharing insights through the sharing of artificial intelligence. It begins then to open the aperture around what collaboration even means. You no longer have to imagine the hard work of putting together secure data enclaves or other very hard mechanisms to allow more than one institution to collaborate. But the mere movement of algorithms can allow for the creation of consortia, associations, even utilities, to allow for the sharing of risk, the sharing of costs, the sharing of insights. This also opens the aperture for very new forms of public-private partnerships, where the idea of the divide between public authorities and private entities perhaps gives way to the movement of algorithms fluidly, so that the learnings of government can be leveraged to identify risk more efficiently and in a prioritized way for the private sector. And finally, the very notion of global collaboration is opened up. The idea that we can begin to think about cross-border and multinational collaboration through the shared insights is an important feature as you think about global enterprises, payment systems that cross borders, even authorities that want to share information more dynamically. And so there are some fundamental orthodoxies in the current system around data, around sharing, around collaboration, around how to even think about risk management in a global enterprise that are affected directly by the sharing of AI through federated learning. And all of this, I think, is now being understood by regulators and authorities. We've certainly been evangelizing about the technology for many years, as has President Park and his colleagues at HAREX. We know that industry is beginning to take note of this technology. Certainly our clients are using it. And I think there's a recognition that in any future state of any system that is trying to prevent fraud or financial crime or money laundering, there has to be the application of federated learning, which allows for much more dynamic, much more effective, much more efficient discovery and management of risk in payment channels and in financial and commercial systems. So this is a technology that is with us. It's very real, and we are just seeing the advent of its application for the prevention of financial crime and fraud. It's something I'm dedicated to as chairman of Consilient. It's something that we're partnering with President Park and HAREX on to bring into the South Korean market. And I think it's going to be something that will lead to the evolution and the acceleration of a much more effective and efficient anti-money laundering system globally. The system currently has to be redesigned, and the technology of federated learning, of sharing AI, will be the catalyst to a much more effective and efficient system of the future. So I want to thank you again for inviting me to speak. I'm passionate about this technology, and I'm so encouraged by this forum and the gathering that you've all attended. Thank you again.